I'm an omega from the slums, poor and plain, just trying to avoid being thrown into the public pairing pool. So, when I found a heavily injured alpha bleeding out in the stairwell of my building, I didn't call the hospital. I took him home. Welcome to He History channel. Subscribe to follow all our latest adventures. Story begins. He was tall and strong, glaring at me with sharp, bloodshot eyes even as he bled. When I offered help, he only grunted one word, "Don't." That kind of tone told me all I needed to know. This man couldn't afford a hospital. Either undocumented or dead broke. I asked bluntly, "Got a name? A family?" He touched his waist, looked confused, then said, "Roger Leonard. No family." That was enough for me. "I'll help you, but you'll be my alpha for a while. Deal?" He hesitated, eyes locked on me, then nodded. I dragged him up to my unit. A feat, considering my scrawny frame and his sheer size. Thank God it was late and no one saw. The blood smell clung to everything. I laid him down and released a bit of my omega pheromone to calm him. He stilled. Cleaning his wounds, I realized most of the blood wasn't his. Just shallow cuts from what looked like shrapnel. But his head, that was serious. A blunt trauma behind the skull. His gland was torn too. He carried a strange folding knife with a fingerprint sensor, which I dumped into a drawer without a second glance. Once I had him patched up and unconscious on my sofa, I finally looked at him properly. He was absurdly good-looking. Stupidly handsome. Stupidly big too. I almost regretted saving him. Then I saw his face again, and decided it was worth it. I gave him anti-inflammatories, covered him with a blanket, and told him aloud, "You'd better not wake up and be ungrateful." The next day he was burning up. I barely slept, checking him over and over. When the fever finally broke, I passed out on the floor. I woke up to a face inches from mine. Flawless, symmetrical, absurdly handsome. Too close. "Why you?" I jolted upright. He scrambled back, fully naked, eyes wide and stupid. He blinked slowly, looking confused and fragile. What's happening? Oh hell. I tested him. "Do you know your name? Where you're from?" Blank stare. He had no idea. I dressed him in the biggest clothes I owned. They barely fit. His biceps strained the sleeves, his calves poked out from the pants. The t-shirt stretched across his chest, taut and ridiculous. On another man, it might have looked laughable. On him, it was endearing. He was gorgeous. Still stupid, but gorgeous. I took him to a backstreet clinic I trusted. Tossed the blood-soaked clothes on the way. The doc examined him and said, "He's got some brain bruising, maybe blocking pheromone flow. It'll pass, probably." Translation: You're too poor for a real hospital. Don't expect miracles. Now he follows me everywhere. I stop, he stops. I run, he runs. I sit, he squats beside me. Once, I turned suddenly. He froze, eyes red, like he sensed I didn't want him anymore. So I told him, "From now on, I'm your Gerald. Got that? That means I'm the person you like most." He nodded seriously. "Gerald, I like you the most." But a mess. My apartment is small, meant for one. So we share a bed. He knows how to read and handle basic hygiene, thank God. Maybe this wouldn't be so bad. When I went to work, he stayed home. Didn't run off. Didn't cause trouble. I thought maybe he'd vanish someday and save me the trouble. But every day, I came home to a naked man lounging in my apartment. The first time I freaked out. "You've got no shame?" He at least had the sense to close the curtains. Still, he was my husband now, the one I saved with my own money. I wasn't about to let neighbors peek at that body. He tugged my hand, whispering, "I don't feel good." He leaned in close, radiating heat and a scent I couldn't quite place. Warm, clean, devastatingly alpha. My breath hitched. I flushed all over. "You don't feel good, so you took off your clothes?" He pouted. "It's tight. It hurts. Here, feel it." He grabbed my hand and pressed it right where it hurt. I jolted, following his gaze, and then my eyes went wide again. My whole face burned up as if set on fire. I yanked my hand back. "Why, you could have just told me. You can't just walk around naked." To be fair, all the clothes he wore were mine, and none of them really fit him. But tight enough to hurt? That thought alone made my face darken even more. Roger Leonard looked like he realized he'd done something wrong. He sniffled and mumbled, "I'm sorry, Gerald. Don't be mad. I'll get dressed right now." He slipped back into my clothes reluctantly, casting a sulky glance my way. So even when he's a dumbass, he's still hard to manage. I went out and bought him a pair of oversized boxer shorts. The moment I tossed them onto him, he clutched them with both hands and tackled me in a hug. "Gerald, you bought these for me?" Those once intimidating eyes now sparkled like a puppy's. I shoved him away. "You can't just swing that thing around in broad daylight. That's public indecency." "Oh, okay, Gerald," he nodded, then hesitated. "Wait, so does that mean it's okay at night?" Once I'd saved up a little, I finally took him out to buy some real clothes. We hit the pedestrian street and picked out 2 proper outfits. He looked good. Too good. Like a walking billboard. The cheap fabrics clung to him like they were tailored. The lady running the stall, someone I vaguely knew, chuckled. "Gerald, your man's fine." The moment he tried that shirt, 3 guys came asking for the same one. I smirked, lifting my chin. "He's all right." Her eyes narrowed. She knew I was downplaying it. Roger Leonard opened his mouth to speak, but I slapped a hand over it before he could ruin the illusion. He blinked innocently while I glared him into silence. We paid and left in a rush. No way was I letting that fool tarnish my rep. Back home, he wouldn't wear the new clothes. "They're dirty. They're brand new." He frowned stubbornly. "Gerald, we have to wash them." "Fine." So I made him wash them himself and hang them to dry. That night, I lay in bed calculating our remaining funds. Money was tight. For someone like me, with no degree, no qualifications, every cent mattered. Even the suppressants for my heat cycle were expensive. But now I had an alpha. If he bit me, I could skip the meds. In some twisted way, bringing Roger Leonard home was saving me money. He curled up beside me, still only in his boxers. I tried to shove him off. "Why were you hugging me?" He didn't even flinch. He just nuzzled into my neck and inhaled deeply. "Gerald, you smell so good." His pheromones spilled into the air, thick and intense. I gasped, body tensing. "Didn't I tell you not to let them out randomly?" I muttered. "I didn't mean to, Gerald," he said softly. "It just happened." It was probably because my heat was coming. I didn't feel threatened by him, so his pheromones wrapped around me gently. Until I felt his canines graze my neck. I shoved him away, scrambling forward to clutch my throat. My eyes were wet, cheeks flushed. "Roger, not yet." Too many temporary marks could become addictive. I didn't know how long he'd stay in my life, and as an omega, I had to control myself. His expression turned confused, then guilty. "I'm sorry, Gerald." He lay perfectly still, facing away, his back a lonely curve in the dark. I worried he was upset. I almost reached out. Then he whispered, "Gerald, can I hug you? I won't bite." I didn't answer. He stayed still, but after a moment his hands slipped into the blanket and found the hem of my shirt. Gently he tugged. Then, inch by inch, he slid over and wrapped me up in his arms. I closed my eyes and drifted off like that, warm, safe. Next morning, I got up quietly to avoid waking him. I had a job unloading stock at a grocery store. Tough labor, but work was work. Drinks came first, then seafood, heavy stuff. I'd done it before, but every time, it pushed my limits. As I staggered with a tank pressing into my spine, I felt my body wobble. Then, out of nowhere, someone grabbed the tank off my back and lifted it like it was nothing. I turned in shock. Roger Leonard stood there, arms flexed, muscles taut, water tank in hand. He looked like a warrior god. When his eyes met mine, that silly little smile of his spread across his unfairly handsome face. "Gerald," he boomed. Everyone looked. I kept a straight face. "What are you doing here?" "I snuck out," he said brightly, dodging my hand. "Where do I put this?" I pointed. He trotted off, tank in hand. "Don't move, Gerald. I'll help you. You're strong." I blinked. That thing weighed close to 100 pounds. Even the guys around us gawked. "Damn, Gerald, your alpha's no joke," one of the workers muttered. I rotated my sore shoulder. "Yeah. Strong." A fellow Omega huffed next to me. "He wasn't helping you before. Did you just get him?" "Found him," I replied honestly. In cities like ours, picking up strays wasn't rare. In the capital, sure, but here? Carrie Owen, a married Omega, didn't look surprised. If I hadn't gotten hitched, I'd have picked one up too. Marriage is a scam, husband's useless, I work and raise kids, cook and clean. He sighed. "But hey, yours is handsome. At least there's that." I didn't answer. Roger Leonard was bustling around, taking over everything. I was about to join in, but he pushed me aside. "Too heavy. Let me." They paid by the box. Once I felt we had enough, I grabbed his wrist. "Let someone else have a turn. We all work to survive." If I hogged it, no one would call me for future gigs. We headed home, pockets fuller than usual. I picked up some meat. That night, I cooked dinner. Meanwhile, my oversized idiot of an alpha washed our laundry in the bathroom, humming to himself. Roger stepped out of the bathroom with just a pair of oversized boxers hanging low on his hips, muscles sleek and glistening. No wonder he could lift crates like they were feathers. "Gerald, I'm done." In just a few strides, his tall, broad frame loomed beside me. I shoved him away. "Go set the table." "Oh." After we ate, I went to wash up while Roger cleaned up. When I came out, the kitchen was spotless. For some reason, the sight made something warm swell quietly in my chest. That night, he curled around me again, just like his pheromones, strong and intrusive. I felt his canines pressing against my gland. Lying on my side, I gripped the sheets hard, thinking, fine, let him bite, just a temporary mark, that's all. But instead of biting, his tongue slid across my neck, slow and hot. He made a deliberately loud slurping sound. "Gerald tastes so good." "You idiot." I couldn't help but laugh. He was so damn cute. Before dawn, I got up quietly. Roger stirred too, rubbing his eyes as he sat up. "Gerald." I was pulling on my pants. "What?" His gaze landed on the bruises on my shoulder from last night. He sobered instantly, yawned, and got out of bed. "I can work, Gerald. Take me with you." I thought about it for a moment, then nodded. The part-time jobs I did were all over the place, not always heavy labor. Roger was obedient, always watching me for cues, never causing a scene, never panicking. And he was strong. Whenever he earned money, he handed it all to me without hesitation. Well, almost all, he tucked a bit away for himself. I let it slide. It was his, after all. That night, my neck ached faintly. My once every 3-month heat was on the horizon, so I decided to stay in for a few days. Roger was thrilled. He even started humming. Of course he was happy, we could finally spend the whole day together. But summer heat was brutal, and our rental didn't have air conditioning. Roger clung to me at night like a furnace, arms wrapped tight, his body radiating heat through my sweat-soaked shirt. Our pheromones tangled. I woke with a soft gasp, my head tipping back as I whispered breathlessly, "What are you doing?" His towering form pressed behind me, his breath hot and heavy near my ear. I snapped awake and struggled. "Roger, stop. It's late. Don't fool around." "Gerald," he murmured, voice full of pitiful longing. "Just a little." "No," I said firmly. "Listen to me." He went still, but the arms around my waist didn't budge. In fact, he shifted just slightly closer. It hurt. A lot. But how could a fool like him even know what he was doing? I pried myself loose, sat up, and turned on the bedside lamp. He followed. His beautiful face looked genuinely hurt. His chest was bare, rising and falling fast with each breath. There was a wildness in his eyes, naive and unfiltered, yet tinged with something predatory. "Gerald," he said hoarsely, "I hurt." I groaned. "You always hurt somewhere." Under the soft yellow light, he dropped his gaze and whispered again, "Gerald." Then he grabbed my hand and pressed it somewhere very specific. "Here, it's uncomfortable." My hand trembled. If he'd said his head hurt, I wouldn't have been nearly this flustered. I yanked my hand back. Handle it yourself. But his alpha pheromones surged again, relentless. I couldn't take it, just a regular omega, overwhelmed. I tried to climb out of bed, but he grabbed my waist. My arms shook as I held myself up, stealing a glance at him. His brows knit in frustration and suddenly, smack, he slapped my lower back. I collapsed, face first, across his lap. Lips clamped shut, eyes squeezed tight. I didn't let a single sound escape. "Gerald, did you pee the bed?" he asked innocently. I wanted to disappear. "Shut up. You peed." I shoved him aside and tried to get up, but the moment my feet touched the ground, my knees buckled. Roger leapt down, scooped me back with an arm around my waist. My back hit his chest, and my legs gave out completely. He didn't know how to suppress his scent. And he was still acting like a clueless idiot, but I was starting to think the clueless part was a lie. He buried his face in my neck, inhaling like he was addicted. "Gerald, you smell amazing." A month ago, he didn't even understand pheromones. Now he could say stuff like that? I turned, hands pressing against his arms, my voice low and hoarse. "Stop fooling around. We have work tomorrow." "We didn't." I lied. But Roger said proudly, "I'll work for you, Gerald." He really was obedient. At first, I'd hated how dumb he was. Now, maybe I didn't mind. If he stayed this loyal, maybe I'd keep him. He spun me around and beamed. "Gerald, hugging you feels so good." Yeah. He wasn't dumb. Not even close. That night, I stopped fighting. His heated gaze, that clumsy kiss, his hands everywhere, no rhythm, no plan. Eventually, I had to guide him, step by step. But make no mistake, Roger Leonard was not stupid. He was quick. Too quick. He held me like I was everything, his voice loud and excited. "Gerald. Gerald." I tried to shush him, hand over his mouth. "Quiet," I gasped. "You'll wake the neighbors." But he blinked at me, misunderstanding completely. Next morning, he stood by the bed with a bowl of meat porridge, looking like a kicked puppy. "Gerald." I stayed under the covers, silent. "I made this for you." I flung off the blanket, cheeks bright red. "You went way too far. How could you do that?" Roger's tall frame wilted. "Beeb, you were the one yelling." I choked. "I was telling you to shut up." I buried myself in the blanket again. Then there was a loud thud. I peeked out. Roger had dropped to his knees by the bed. "What are you doing?" "Darling," he said earnestly, "don't be mad." "I promise I won't." I slapped a hand over his mouth, face burning. "Shut it." He pressed his lips together, obedient. His sharp, icy eyes looked up at me, confused and innocent. I pulled my hand away. "Get up." "Oh, okay." He stood, then grinned, all sunshine again. "Darling, come eat." I was hungry anyway, so I didn't argue. I ate a whole bowl of porridge. Roger Leonard only started eating once he saw I'd taken a few bites. In just a few gulps, he emptied 2 bowls, then climbed back into bed and wrapped himself around me, burying us both under the blanket. Our pheromones intertwined in a quiet storm, and his natural nest-building instincts kicked in. I didn't push him away. We didn't leave the apartment for days. When the heat finally faded, I felt like I'd been physically destroyed, like Roger had pummeled me into the mattress for days. We came dangerously close to a permanent bond. If I hadn't stayed lucid, it would have been over for me. Taking a deep breath, I began cleaning up and warned, "We're going out job hunting tomorrow. No fooling around." Roger nodded obediently, eyes content and satisfied. He always listened to Gerald. But after marking me, the dull ache in his head returned. Roger, being a stubborn fool with a high pain threshold, ignored it. He'd gotten even more clingy. Wanted to hold hands in public, probably picked that up after seeing young couples at our previous jobs. Today, we were unloading stock again. But I was drained, too sore to lift anything. Roger did all the heavy lifting while I sat on the side, doing mental math. If he stayed by my side, if we saved up enough, maybe we could open a small shop and live quietly. That was when the shouting started. I looked over. A scuffle had broken out nearby. And Roger, of course, was smack in the middle of it. I rushed over to pull him away, grabbing his arm just as chaos erupted. Someone hurled a box, someone else rushed in with a knife. Roger turned to warn me, but caught something in the corner of his eye. His gaze darkened. He shoved me behind him and kicked out viciously, stopping the man before he got too close. But the box, bam, it hit the back of Roger's head. He grunted and I panicked. I pushed past the shouting crowd, dragging him out. Someone finally stepped in to break up the fight, and security was called. Once we were outside, I made him sit. My hands fumbled over his scalp. Where did it hit? Does it hurt? Roger's face was pale. He scrunched his brows and gave me a dopey grin. Not hurt. Just scared. Liar. He was in pain. But he was too proud to say it, too poor to go to the hospital. He knew I loved saving money. So he said nothing. I bought his excuse. When I didn't find any swelling, I relaxed. We got paid for the half day. He kept telling me to go home first. I didn't think much of it and left. 10 minutes later, he came back with a cake. A small one. Maybe 8 inches. He was blushing furiously, clearly embarrassed. I stared at him in disbelief. What's this? Roger licked his lips nervously. It's for you, Gerald. We'd once walked past a bakery, and I'd glanced at a blue cake in the window. Just a glance. I hadn't even said I wanted it. Apparently, he remembered. He'd been squirreling away money, bit by bit, just to buy me a cake? No wonder he always looked guilty when hiding coins. I thought he was just being sneaky. I didn't scold him for spending. He looked so proud, so radiant, it made me happy too. No one had ever bought me a cake before. Thanks, I murmured, shy despite myself. I set it on the table. We had it after dinner. That night, maybe it was the warmth of the day, or maybe I just gave in. I let myself be soft. But the moment Roger bit down on my neck, something in his head went wrong. He stiffened with a pained gasp and collapsed on top of me. Roger! I shoved him off, panic overriding any embarrassment. He clutched his head, sweat pouring down his face. Gerald! Get dressed, I said, already throwing clothes at him. We're going to the hospital. No, I'll be fine. Just let me. No. My eyes stung. He'd been hit hard earlier. What if it was serious? I loved this quiet life we had. I'd go into debt if I had to. I wasn't about to lose him. I got him dressed, hailed a cab, and took him straight to the emergency room. They admitted him for observation. He'd lost consciousness shortly after arrival. The doctor said he was sleeping. They hooked him up to N4. Only then, sitting at his bedside, did I start wondering, who is he really? Where did he come from? But more than anything, I just wanted him to be okay. I must have drifted off, because the next thing I felt was a hand brushing my cheek. I opened my eyes, hazy, and saw him watching me. His cool alpha eyes studied my face, palm resting gently on my cheek. Roger, I whispered, grabbing his hand, eyes wet. Are you okay? Does it still hurt? He pulled his hand back instinctively. I'm fine. My voice cracked. Don't worry, okay? We'll finish the tests and everything will be fine. He nodded faintly. Okay. A nurse came to wheel him off for further scans, this time for his brain and gland. We'd already done the basics last night. The results came back quickly. A doctor walked in with a group of trainees. Your alpha's in excellent health. There was a past injury to the head, but it's healed completely. You mentioned memory loss. It's more likely due to a blocked pheromone pathway in his gland. I blinked. Then, can he recover? He says his head hurts. It's very possible. Once his pheromones start flowing normally again, through bonding, sexual release, whatever suits, it might improve. The headache could be a sign that his memory is trying to return. He handed me a prescription. Painkillers if needed. Then we were discharged. Between the hospital fees and meds, my bank account was wiped clean. I muttered as we walked out, I heard the capital has good benefits. Medical insurance, housing support. Roger glanced at me quietly. I didn't look back, trudging ahead with my old phone in hand. He followed, carrying the bag of meds, keeping pace. Back home, I said nothing and went to cook. Roger glanced around our tiny apartment, sat briefly on the cramped sofa, then stood. "I'll help, Gerald." I nodded, then changed my mind. "Just serve the rice." 2 reheated dishes, a simple cabbage soup. We ate in silence. That night, he slid behind me in bed and cautiously wrapped his arms around me. I didn't move. His hand slipped under my shirt. "Gerald." I turned to look at him. "What about your head?" He leaned in, voice low. "It doesn't hurt. The doctor said I need to release." I looked into his eyes, heart twisting. Because deep down I was selfish. I didn't want him to recover. If he remembered who he was, would he still be mine? Would he still call me darling 100 times a day? Would he still want me? My eyes stung. A tear slipped free. He leaned forward, kissed it away. The next morning, I dragged my sore body out of bed. Roger Leonard wanted to come with me, but I refused. Carrie Owen had found a part-time gig and asked me to tag along. We'd been working odd jobs lately, just to make ends meet. Sometimes I'd catch whispers about unrest in the capital, but I never paid much attention. Earning money was all that mattered. That day, we worked as promoters for a supermarket campaign. During the lunch break, Carrie eyed me warily. "What's with the long face? Broke up with that alpha of yours?" There was even a trace of glee in his voice. "Told you. A catch like that doesn't just fall into people's laps. Good-looking, obedient, strong, too good to be true." I said nothing, just sat there chewing on a piece of nearly expired bread. "You did break up, huh?" Carrie gasped. I shook my head but couldn't stomach another bite. We didn't finish until after 10 that night. While we packed up, Carrie asked, "You're still planning to go to the capital, right?" I paused, then finally answered, "Yeah, I am." I couldn't let myself be held back by Roger Leonard. Even if he regained his memory and left, so what? Saying it out loud gave me a strange sense of relief. Carrie gave me a knowing smile and patted my shoulder. Then he tilted his head, eyes shifting. "Well, look who's come to pick you up." I followed his gaze. Under the street lamp stood a tall man, lean and sharp-featured, drawing more than a few eyes. When he saw me, he smiled, strode over, and took my hand. "Gerald, I'm here to take you home." I lowered my eyes and nodded. I was exhausted. Halfway through the walk, he picked me up and carried me on his back. I fell asleep the moment we got home. But in the middle of the night, I woke to an empty bed. Instantly alert, I got up and noticed the door was only loosely closed. I stepped out into the hallway, catching sight of Roger at the stairwell's corner. One of his ears twitched. He exchanged a look with a man cloaked in black. The man nodded and silently disappeared into the night. Roger emerged casually and said, "Heard a sound, just checking." His face was half hidden in the dark. My racing heart finally calmed hearing his voice. Back in bed, I heard him lock the door, wash up, and crawl in beside me. He wrapped his arms around me. The scent of dragon musk laced with a faint strawberry sweetness curled around me. His lips brushed my neck. I slipped out of his arms and laid flat. He leaned over. "Gerald, are you mad at me?" In the shadows, I looked at him. "No." He cupped my face and kissed me. I pushed him off and rolled to the other side. Roger frowned faintly. Later, just as I was dozing off, he pulled me close again. We'd both silently accepted the shape of our days. I stopped snapping at him. He no longer played dumb. That old, bumbling innocence was long gone. He still followed me to jobs and worked hard. At night, on the way home, I walked quietly ahead while he stepped in front of me and crouched. "Let me carry you." My chest tightened, my throat thickened with emotion. He waited there, hunched, arms ready. I hesitated, then climbed onto his back, arms around his neck. He turned his head slightly, smiling to himself. We'd eaten outside, so once home, we just washed up and went to bed. That night, we lay in silence, side by side. Then he reached for my hand. He slipped something onto my finger. A ring, slightly loose. "You're my Omega. I've marked you." "Gerald, my real name is James Leonard." James Leonard? That name sounded familiar. I tried to pull my hand back, but he held it tight. "I have to return to the capital. Come with me." My eyes widened. "The capital?" He brushed my cheek. "Yes." I swallowed. "You're not going to sell me, are you?" He was no longer that simple-minded fool. He'd remembered who he was. I didn't really know this version of him. I almost preferred the old one. But I'd known for a while, he wasn't truly stupid. He chuckled softly. No. He remembered everything, even that moment in the junk pile, when I first looked into his blood-stained eyes. Before dawn, I woke to the sound of him moving around. He noticed and leaned down to kiss my forehead. "Get dressed. We're leaving." He paused. "It's urgent. But once I finish handling things in the capital, we can come back." I got up without hesitation, dressed quickly. When he opened the door, 2 uniformed soldiers stepped inside and saluted. "Lieutenant General Leonard." I froze, stepping back instinctively. James caught my wrist firmly. "This is my Omega." The soldiers exchanged glances and smiled at me. "Ma'am." My face flushed red. I pressed my lips together in embarrassment. James chuckled quietly and told me to pack. I grabbed my clothes, savings, and essentials. We left in a military helicopter. It was my first time flying. I was scared. James, meanwhile, discussed mission logistics with his team. I didn't listen. I fell asleep not long after takeoff. When I woke, we were already in the capital. The city overwhelmed me with its grandeur and speed. I stayed close to James the entire time. Eventually, we arrived at a villa that looked more like a castle. 2 elegant middle-aged people waited at the door. When they saw James, they burst into tears, his parents. He embraced them and introduced me. I looked like a stray, dirty clothes, worn shoes. I wanted to run, but James's arm held me tight. "Oh, sir," I muttered. They didn't expect their son to return with someone like me. James had work waiting for him, and after a few quick words, he led me upstairs. "My parents don't live here. This is a secured military estate. You'll be safe. But if you need to leave the house, clear it with me first." "Okay, Gerald?" When he said my name, he blushed slightly, but then repeated it as if trying to convince himself it was fine. I nodded, face hot. As he turned to go, I grabbed his sleeve. "Will it be dangerous?" He looked into my wet eyes and said gently, "No. The most dangerous moment has already passed. You saved me." Truthfully, he would have survived even without me. His coma and memory loss had been caused by a massive release of pheromones that neutralized an assassination attempt, damaging his gland. Rest was all he needed. Even brainless, he'd never been in real danger. Still, when he thought about how possessive he'd been during those days, he winced. The way he'd marked me like territory, like a beast. "Wait for me," he said, eyes flicking away. After he left, servants came to help me settle in. I fumbled through the strange electronics in the room, trying to figure them out. James was busy now. Always in uniform. Always serious. He no longer resembled the man who clung to me like a warm, stubborn shadow. That made me nervous. So I texted him. "I want to find a job." That evening, he came home early, with a sharply dressed man in tow. While James Leonard went to deal with work, the man stayed behind to talk with me. He asked a few polite questions and, more importantly, provided a lot of useful information about the job market in the capital, trends across different industries, and potential development paths. The more I listened, the more anxious I felt. He eventually laid out 2 business proposals for me. I didn't take either. He didn't push. After he left, James and I had another long conversation. He handed me a card. "This isn't repayment," he said, cornering me between the bookshelf and the wall. "It's money you spent on me. I just want you to accept it without guilt." His voice dropped low. "Gerald, you took care of me when I was at my worst. Now, because of me, your safety's at risk. Please, don't always push me away." His previous injury had been the result of political sabotage within his faction. Though he'd swiftly eliminated most threats upon returning, some were still lurking. He didn't want me leaving the compound unsupervised. I didn't understand all the details. But if he said so, I listened. When I was the capable one, he followed my lead. Now that he was, I followed his. It seemed fair enough. But he was standing so close. I pressed my lips together and turned my head away. His kiss landed softly on my cheek and my throat tightened. My hands had nowhere to go, so I gripped the bookshelf behind me. "I haven't said no," I whispered. James wrapped his arms around my waist and pulled me in. I stumbled into his chest. He was tall enough that I instinctively stood on my toes. His gaze was sharp, predatory, and cold. It made my heart skip. As he leaned down, I lifted my chin. We ended up by the bed. I braced my hands on the edge, lowered my gaze, and asked, "I'm just a very average Omega. I liked Roger Leonard and he liked me. But are you really him? You're a general. You have so many choices. I'm possessive. I want what I love to belong to me completely. No matter who they are." I looked up at him, steady. "Can you do that?" "Actually, never mind. I don't need an answer. I want to leave this place." I wanted to return to my own life. Without hesitation, James said, "I can." I froze. In the following days, he arranged for me to take training courses. I accepted willingly. Since our honest talk, we'd grown closer. But something still felt different from before. James Leonard was simply too high up. Even when he tried to meet me halfway, there was a gap. One night, he came home drunk, clearly in a good mood. Probably because things were finally settling down. But the alcohol made him bolder, rougher. I struggled to push him off. "Gerald," he murmured against my neck, voice low and gravelly. "Do you see now? It's me. Roger Leonard is just a name I used on missions." I wasn't lying. I was conscious when I chose it. I turned my head away and wrinkled my nose. "You smell like alcohol." He laughed. "You never used to mind. Playing favorites?" I shot him a glare. "You were a clean idiot back then. Besides, you relied on me. Of course I had to take responsibility." James sat me on his lap, gaze dark. "Then now, maybe you can rely on me a little too." I stared at him for a long moment, then finally nodded. He patted my head and smiled. "Good boy, Gerald." I scowled. He laughed harder. Later, I got a job at a small company. Eventually, I started my own media channel. I genuinely enjoyed the work, and it helped James's public image too. As he rose through the ranks, those who supported him gained power. Welfare reforms began rolling out across the alliance. We even returned to our old city for a visit. We saw Carrie Owen and Dr. Dywar. Carrie now had a stable job and was doing well. As for me, I was managing my own small company while continuing my education. James was always busy, so I usually picked him up after work. The ring he gave me was the Chi family's heirloom crest, a bit too big, so he gave me another one, an engagement ring. Not long after, at a public event, General Chi wore a modest diamond band on his ring finger. When asked about it, he chuckled and said, "Couldn't afford this on my salary. My wife bought it." People smiled awkwardly. "Ah, right." Chi family's heir really knew how to joke. One afternoon, I came to pick him up. Smiling, he waved to his colleagues. "My wife's here. See you tomorrow." Their expressions were mixed. Even I felt a little embarrassed. The next day was a weekend. He went out to the yard to pick strawberries he'd planted for me. I was stretching nearby. He walked over, pinched my chin, kissed me, and said with a grin, "So sweet." I blinked. Oh. My face turned red. My pheromones smelled like strawberries. He did that on purpose. The end.
Thanks for stopping by. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any new videos.